Good evening, and welcome to the Marion Minor Cook Athenaeum. My name is Isabel Lilias, and I'm one of the Ath Fellows this year. All over the world, whether you're listening to it on your computer or in a concert hall, jamming with some friends, or performing for an audience, music is a universal source of entertainment, an art that's purpose is the enjoyment from and the pleasure of listening. But like any other art, literature, visual art, music is more than its aesthetic or artistic value. Music is a medium in which we can both convey and understand the significance of religious beliefs and cultural traditions. Punjabi drummers are heard globally through the vehicle of hedonistic Bhangra music. Yet, as our speaker tonight will demonstrate with unfamiliar and surprising examples, much of the playing Punjabi drummers do in their local communities occurs in the context of religious devotion. Gibb Schreffler is an assistant professor of music and director of ethnomusicology at Pomona College. A scholar engaged in both the contemporary ethnographic and historical study of musical culture, his diverse areas of expertise include the vernacular music and dance of South Asia's Punjab region, historical work songs of American maritime culture, and the aesthetics of Jamaican popular music. His broad theoretical interests include the ways people engage with music to reaffirm and articulate their cultural values and social identities, along with philosophical questions about the nature, definition, and categorization of music. Professor Schreffler's research in Punjab has focused on traditions of hereditary professional drummers, issues pertaining to the social status of musicians, and popular dance revivals. His work related to traditional Punjabi drummers appears in numerous journals, including Asian Music, South Asian History and Culture, Popular Music and Society, Sikh Formations, and Journal of Punjab Studies. Professor Schreffler's Athenaeum performance and presentation is co-sponsored by the Sikh Studies Fund. As always, I must remind you that audio and visual recording are strictly prohibited. Please silence and put away your mobile devices at this time. And please join me in welcoming Professor Schreffler to the Athenaeum.
Hey, thank you so much. That was so nice. Hey, everybody. Everyone can hear me? Is this thing going off now? A little bit, yeah. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the Ath. Thank you to Professor Michon and Professor Martinez, and to Priya and the wonderful student hosts that have been taking care of my needs, and Brian and Chef Dave and everyone. Yeah, thank you. I think we understand that my presentation is the last of several in a series about devotion in South Asia. So I just wanted to clear that up so you understand that I'm not giving you maybe the general introduction to Punjabi drumming that you might expect, but I'm focusing it specifically in that area. And the idea behind doing it this way and get my name beyond bhangrā is this idea that I study Punjabi music, and people who have any familiarity with Punjabi music say bhangrā, 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 bhangrā. Tell me about bhangrā. Students say, I want to write a paper about bhangrā. Guide me. The BBC just contacted me this morning. We're making a documentary on bhangrā. Give us your paper. Send us your paper. Like, which one? my paper on bhangrā. Get it yourself. No, but it's like, isn't there something else in like Punjabi expressive culture? I think bhangrā is cool, but there's some other things that are there. So that's where the journey I hope to take you to today. But first, some introductions. So this is dhol. This is dhol. He comes from Punjab, and his ancestors probably came around the 11th century from areas to the west of Punjab, maybe from Persian lands. Yeah. And he has, this is his belly, his cook. This is his head part, this is his bottom part. This is his head part, so I can't sit it this way. That's upside down. This is the head part. And he has his dress. These are the clothes, and you putting on the clothes right now. Getting a dress with these Pomona the pom-poms. Yeah. And he has a voice as well. Dhol has a voice. And I want to ask you guys to listen to the voice of Dhol. And I want you guys to really listen to the sound. I know there's some things going on here visually. You're just still wondering, who is this guy up on the stage? You know, why does he have the holes in his shoes? And where did he learn this? And, you know, what's his phone number? And is he single and all those good things? And, you know, what is this wood? What wood is that? Or did you paint that? You know, all these little questions like that, I'm sure, are in your mind, but I try not to think about those. Pretend you're familiar with all those things already. Yeah. And also, when I play this, try not to just look at what I'm doing and then wonder, oh, is that how the hand goes? And I just want you to listen to the sound right now. If you need to close your eyes, close your eyes. Maybe, is it kosher to ask for some responses in the presentations like this, like some quick short ones maybe? Anyone want to say about what they were, if this brought any associations to mind or a particular feeling? And I'm not asking for a specific answer, and I'm not trying to lead you with anything. I'm just curious if you felt any particular way. Maybe different than you thought you were going to feel before I played it, or maybe the same, or maybe that was familiar. Any comments? Yeah, please. Yeah. All right. Okay. So the breath quickened, there was some anticipation, somewhat familiar, were some of the comments there. Yeah, and you had a comment, please. The different sounds between these two? Okay. Okay, interesting, yeah. A couple other comments, yeah, go ahead. Oops.
There was strength and power that was very apparent.
Okay.
There was also restraint in the precision of it, like it wasn't just haphazard and structured.
Okay. I'm just amplifying everyone's comments because I have the mic. There was strength and power, but there was precision, and there was some maybe reservation to it as well. Maybe one more comment somebody wants to make about what they felt or what they thought? Go ahead, please, Sana.
The minute I closed the phone thing, it just sounded like so familiar with that. Very unique sound to the phone that like other instruments.
Okay, it sounded like home. Okay, so very familiar sound. Yeah, so the sound, I would say, oh, you want to do one more and I'll try to amplify what you say. Felt like a festival in India. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to suggest, if we're just listening to the sound, there might have been two things you might have heard. Something, the sound itself, the sound quality itself, that you may have heard before and you connect to the festival of India or home or the familiarity, perhaps. And then at the same time, the dhol, as I said, he's actually saying something to you. He's saying a specific thing, right? It was going over and over again, wasn't it? You heard the same thing over and over again. I wasn't entertaining you with some trying to interesting sound object. I was just doing it. It was like, SOS, SOS. I mean, that's not what he was saying, but you know, like you're doing the Morse code. you know, some message on the Morse code. You just do it over and over, SOS, SOS, SOS. Same thing over, because I want you to get that message. This is the thing that's being said. It's a very specific thing. And it's SOS, right? It's not SOT. It's not SOR. If you do SOR or SOT, you didn't do the message. You've got to do the specific one. So I wouldn't play, add some little thing, silly thing like that, and then continue. I did that exact same thing over and over again. Can we wait for the, yeah. So that's your introduction to the sound of dhol and what he looks like and where he comes from. And he's always gendered as male. And he's always played, well, not always, but he's most typically played by very specific people. So these are the players of dhol, or a slice, a cross-section of what dhol players look like. So one thing you'll notice is that they're all men. Another thing you will notice from the list on the side here is that the players of dhol come from very specific ethnic communities. And I wonder, I'd be surprised if anyone in this room recognizes more than half of those names. They're not the most well-known ethnic communities in India. Yeah. They may sound like they're something you've heard of, but it's a community has taken on those sort of names. So the drummers, the dhol players come from among the most marginalized groups that any Indian society has. Almost all of them come from people that were outcasts, either they're caste-like groups that were outside the caste system. So in that case, they're, in modern Indian parlance, they'd be called scheduled castes, or they're what would be called nowadays scheduled tribes. So they were considered themselves tribal people. They might have just been outside of society because they were literally outside, roaming around, never settling down. Versus these other communities who are outside because the mainstream society says, you are unclean, you should live beyond the city walls. But even within that chunk of people, the former outcasts peoples historically of India, of which about a third of the population of Punjab comes from among those ethnic groups, these groups are even the most marginal, because there are some larger, like we could say minority groups in Punjab, but these are like the minorities of the minorities. And the outsiders don't even know who they are and don't necessarily even know what names, or they call them by a certain name, but it's not the name these people in the group call themselves. And they have all just separate little different worldviews and different customs and way of doing things, and maybe even their own language. So this is my teacher on the upper right, for example. He comes from the community that the outsiders call the Bazigars, the acrobats. But they don't call themselves, we're the acrobats. They just have another name for themselves, which is like, many peoples of the world. An outsider gives them a name, and then their name for themselves is like, we're just the people. We don't have a name for ourselves. We're just people. And but he had his own language that he would use only with his family. And then if he would try to speak to outsiders, he would speak in the language of Punjabi. So just a different slice of, maybe you can get a sense of looking at the people. There are different characteristics, this sort of thing. I'm not going to specify who all these people are. Now, maybe the interesting thing at this point is that you see a lot of other people play this instrument nowadays, and you mostly see that outside of India and Pakistan. You see all sorts of young people of South Asian origin, of Punjabi origin, that are playing this instrument. And they're from a very different group, very different family groups than these sort of people. But still, within India, it's pretty strict that you would stay within these groups. But how did dhol become, in a way, nationalized? If it was so connected with and just cultivated and played from father to son by these very marginalized groups, how does it become this national phenomenon? Well, here's where we come to bhangrā. And we'll just have to say a few words about bhangrā. Is this working? Yeah. Bhangrā was the name of a geographically limited dance in a smallish area of what is now Pakistan. But after the partition in 1947, there were a few college kids and the eastern side, the Indian side of Punjab, along with a few people like the Bazigars, like my teachers, from my teacher's family, who were refugees from what had become Pakistan. They were Hindu communities, so they went to India. And they ended up as refugees in the same village where these college kids lived, and they developed a folkloric dance that was supposed to just represent different types of Punjabi dancing and do it on stage and in an artistic sort of way. And eventually, to make the long story short, they called that thing bhangrā. And so the connection between a past dance called bhangrā and this new thing they created, which then went on to develop for decades since then, is very tenuous. But as it did develop, the important thing to note here is that it was connected with all kinds of nationalism and national festivals and universities as well, but sort of a nationalistic spirit within the universities. So here's at one of the national festivals here, obviously is hanging out with Chief Minister Prakash Singh Badal, who's like the evergreen. He's like always the Chief Minister of Punjab. He just finished being the Chief Minister again. I think last year he got out or something, but in '72, so he's been like the governor for like 40-something years. But never missing these photo ops. Bhangrā was wedded with this new nationalistic sense of Punjabi identity, and the dhol is coming into that too. It's like the metonym, for the thing that represents the bigger part, this small object. And as bhangrā, the dance, becomes part of the Punjabi identity at large, so does dhol. This is a photograph of, again, my teacher, Garib Das, 1970 at the annual Republic Day celebration, performing this choreographed dance, bhangrā, and people like him from his community would be hired to play the dhol, and then you'd have the other dancers that would come from the mainstream ethnic communities and the upper social classes, and they'd be the dancers. So this is just a slice of a picture from there. I don't know. I don't know if you have any prior experience seeing people play dhol, if you had any idea what they look like, but I think I detect some difference between what he looks like perhaps and what this community of the dancers tend to look like. But this scene becomes an archetype, and it becomes change as well as people just start imagining bhangrā, dhol, dance, the arts, imagining it as more of a broad Punjabi thing in general. So you see what the artist has done here in this picture. They've removed the actual player of dhol. They've made this person from the mainstream landowner community have it, which is something you would never see in traditional Punjabi culture. And they've turned this cane as if it was like the drumstick, but that's all wrong, and the way it's wearing there's many parts of this that are wrong. The artist clearly doesn't really know about the instrument beyond thinking, well, that's part of the generalized Punjabi identity now. So it's kind of takes it out of its original cultural context, and that process goes on, and as we build this kind of global Punjabi identity, where people, especially outside of India, are taking to playing the instrument, because you're here in North America and you're in a different culture and the rules are different, and you can be from a different community and start playing the instrument if you want to, but taking it on with just a different type of imagery like this. Like now I play dhol and it makes me tough. None of those guys that showed in the earlier picture, the dhol players, are interested in looking tough. We were really impressing you, but this is like tough. I'm a dholi from Northern California. It's got to make sure to roll up the sleeves and you know, got to see the bicep bulging a little bit while he's playing. And then dhol again is associated with bhangrā, which is the good times music. It's drinking and just going crazy and passing out and all those sorts of things. And this is a picture on the side of a liquor store. Yeah. Okay, so I want to get beyond that, and I want to introduce you to this this other side of Punjabi culture. How are we going? So this is Tamal. To that one? Was this what you were expecting to hear come out of dhol tonight? Were you thinking he was going to tell you this? I bet you thought he was going to tell you this. Yeah, you thought he was going to tell you the party stuff. The liquor store and the handkerchief. Okay, okay. Don't worry about anything. But this is Tamal again. All right, he's telling you something serious here. This isn't just goof around. Serious, some kind of serious business is happening when this is being played. And actually, this Tamal is probably the most common rhythm played on dhol in Punjab. In Punjab. Outside of Punjab, yeah, everyone wants to play that. Even they'll have a religious festival, they'll have a Nagar Kirtan, the processions of the streets with hymn singing. And you look in the UK and you look in the USA. You know, it's supposed to be religious, but they're doing this like dancey bhangrā sort of thing. In India, serious talk, serious messages. This is Tamal. And probably, as I said, probably the most played rhythm. And not to say that you are impressed, but if you're impressed at all that I could play that, you shouldn't be. It's one of the easier rhythms to play. And I think it's one of the rhythms that I noticed kids would learn first, which doesn't necessarily mean it's the easiest, but maybe it speaks more to how essential it is that children would learn this as actually one of their very first rhythms. So I'm going to take you through various devotional sites where dhol is played for various reasons. Here's just a quick clip of, we're going to hear that rhythm I just played, Tamal, at 3 different sites. And these are all sites in which the 3 major religious groups, Hindu, Sikh, and Muslim, are attending, and where people are using the drumming sound to, in a sense, get possessed by a spirit, to take on the spirit of the devotion. The model for many of the practices that go on in these sites, to look for that model, we could just look at Sufi shrines in general, Sufi dargāh-s. In Pakistan nowadays, it's probably in its kind of most, I don't know, archetypal form, I guess I would say. That's why I'm going to just start off with a quick example from Pakistan, even though I'm mostly talking about what's happening in the Indian side of Punjab. What's interesting as well in Pakistan, you have these newly styled dhol players. By new, I mean the last couple decades or something, since the 1990s. These are people who come, their family tradition comes back from the sweeper community, and they've reinvented themselves recently. And they take on this image, this very intense image of the heterodox type of Sufis who live in the world of like, well, basically it's like opposite day every day. Up is down and down is up, and the men cultivate really long hair and oil it and wear like dress-like gowns, and every single finger they have, they put some jewelry on and these sort of things. And then they play at the Sufi shrines, and they help the malangs, the dervishes, achieve their state of ecstasy and the repetition of the name, the zikr, that's going to help get them closer to the divine in a sort of a direct path, which is their practice. But these drummers are interesting to me because the generation before them would be the background of the kind of lowly drummer who ekes out a living on the edge of society. But due to, I think, partly religious politics in Pakistan in modern times, they've created this new image of themselves where they don't want to look like the drummers who do it for money, because that would make them look lower. Other drummers who are professionals, they say, yeah, this is what we do for a living. It makes others view me as like kind of a degraded, like lower service profession. That's the way it is in the society. But on the other hand, it's our family tradition, so we do it that way. But these are drummers that, this wasn't necessarily their family tradition, but they came from one of the minority groups in the society, and now they've adopted this, and they've adopted this kind of very lofty ethos of, well, we do it just as like devotion. And we do it sort of as an art form now. Do we hear the rhythm that was being played? What rhythm was that? Who's brave enough to say it? This one, right? Tamal. Okay, I want you to know when you leave here tonight, I want you to know Tamal. I want you not to know just Bhangra, I want you to know Tamal. And then you can say that Professor Schreffler told you it was the most common Punjabi dhol rhythm. And you learned something this year. No, just kidding. So most of the other dhol players, aside from the example I just showed, don't think of what they're doing as any kind of aesthetic art at all. As I gave the example earlier and I said, SOS, SOS, you're giving this message. You want to just be really clear absolutely what that message is. It pertains to the function. The first thing I played when I said listen to the sound of dhol this evening was a rhythm for wrestling matches of this particular region of Punjab. So that would just be played over and over and over during the wrestling message. Or the day before the wrestling matches, somebody plays that and people go, oh, okay, wrestling matches are coming up. We understand the code of that signal exactly. What we're finding in modern times in terms of all these other contexts besides the fun Bhangra dance thing is that this rhythm Tamal is being kind of a multi-purpose rhythm for most of the devotional things. People who don't really know that much of the tradition, which happens because all sorts of newcomers are coming into the tradition. Not newcomers from the higher social groups, but people from the lower social groups who in a sense don't have anything to lose by kind of, quote unquote, defiling themselves by being a drummer. But they're moving into the profession, and maybe they haven't had the lineage to teach them all these specific rhythms, so they played them all for everything. So we're going to hear that a lot, and I want you to hear that a lot because I want it to stay with you, but there's some specific ones too. Here's one specific example, the tradition of the mother goddess in her central temple at Vaishno Devi, up in the hills and the northwest of what's now the Indian state of Punjab. And the drummers that cultivate this tradition call themselves jogi. And this is just another modern name. They were a group that faced high discrimination in the past. So much so that it's better to just give yourself a new name and kind of hopefully reinvent your community, and after a few generations, people won't think of who were you in the past. And they call themselves the Jogis now, and they connect themselves with Gorakhnath and then the Nath Jogis and these ascetics and all these sorts of things. And they are the specific ones that play for the mother goddess. And they would play just when the pilgrims would come to the temple and sit down in their vigils, sit for a while with their thoughts and their prayers. And most of the time you find the young players today just play tamal, but some of the old people remember a specific rhythm. It sounds like this. Nothing particularly complicated, nothing trying to impress you at all in what he's playing. It's just the aim is efficacy. This thing has to be played for this deity. It has to be played exactly this way for it to work. And you humble yourself, and you don't try to jazz it up or anything like that. You do exactly what you're supposed to do. It's just a big difference between these like so-called folk performers and a lot of the classical performers and some of the artists nowadays too who are just interested in the instrument because it has this nationalistic power to it, and they or maybe it enhances masculinity or that sort of thing, right? And they want to just play the instrument, but they're thinking, well, I also have to play something very impressive. So they take music that comes from rhythms that come from classical music, and they try to put it on the instrument. Where the traditional dhol players would say, well, you can do that, but I mean, I could like play a tabla rhythm on this podium as well. I mean, you could put the classical rhythm on anything, but that's not what dhol is as a tradition. Sakhi Sarwar is this. I don't know if this would be familiar to anybody. It used to be one of the most revered saints across the Punjab region, and you can see there the 12th century saint in the east side of Punjab. They call Lakh Data Pir. And Sakhi Sarwar was a actual person who ended up going into exile in a sense in this really far area of the southwestern Punjab. You're almost to the province of Balochistan, in the desert, and sets up his shrine there. And his shrine would have been a huge place for pilgrims to go all the way across the entire Punjab to go there. And you would need someone to lead you, because pilgrims would have to go in these camps and stop and sleep in different towns along the way. And the people who led them were these people called, in the yellow there, Parai. Parai were the people that were the special devotees of the saint Sakhi Sarwar, who led the pilgrims, who helped them sing songs of praise for the saint as they went, who played the drum as they went, who furnished their needs as they went. And they constitute a community of dhol players. They also go around with a tall bamboo pole, and they go around begging for alms, and they have women give them a cloth they tie it to this pole, and the women who want something from the saint, usually like, give me a son, or marry my son, or something like that, and that's what they go along with. So it's also called like this saint is also called the flag-carrying saint, based off of that sort of flag thing. So most of them they're Muslim, and most would be settled in Pakistan now, but there's a whole bunch that are floating around India and Punjab. These fellows right here are more kind of settled householder people. They have a musical instrument store. But then there are also the people like this who just go around from festival to festival, earning a living through performing these services and getting donations. So this is, again, that was not tamal. That was a very specific rhythm that guy knows, because he's like the real deal. That guy's like a real insider guy. And the specific rhythm for this saint, Sakhi Sarwar. Haider Shaikh is another saint. So you can see where I'm just going through the different major deities or saints of the Punjab area and the devotional traditions. The actual devotional traditions of all these are kind of similar. So Haider Shaikh is in the eastern side of Punjab, whereas that Sakhi Sarwar one is like as far as you can go to the west. But the border, India-Pakistan border, which of course exists now, but didn't exist in the old days when they did the pilgrimage, is blocking pilgrims from getting to Sakhi Sarwar. But these traditions are still there in East Punjab, and they've transformed other saints to be like kind of transfigured another saint to be like you're imagining it like it's Sakhi Sarwar. So this Haider Shaikh, which is the founder of the town of Malerkotla, all the rituals and practices around him are kind of taking on the qualities of this other one, Sakhi Sarwar, which is like in a way locked off in Pakistan. So his shrine is there. People go to that. The drummers of all different communities are waiting outside, waiting to be hired. These are, for example, these are the Muslim community called Marasi, hereditary professional musicians of many different divisions within that larger community. These particular fellows their peers would probably consider them to be not as prestigious. Like they're not, because their peers are doing like Qawwali music or some kind of other like classical arts or something like that, where they're kind of trying to get the donations playing dhol. But they would wait there and wait for pilgrims to come to the shrine and lead them in, sometimes leading them in as they either prostrate themselves or as they go into a possession. And then the pilgrims go into the shrine, do their prayers, come out, and then the drummers are waiting there when they come out, and then it's, okay, give me these cloths and things. And this, incidentally, this photo is the only time I ever met any Christian dhol players. So it's very small evidence that there's also a community of those as well. This fellow was from the Sikh community, but he's from the Sikh Mazbi community, which are the converts to Sikhism from the outcasts in the past. Sitla Devi, another goddess. This is a goddess associated with smallpox, and she has a temple and a big one in just one small village. But the village is very well known because her temple is there. And right next to her temple too is a little shrine for Sheikh Farid. They're right side by side. And there's a community of Mirasi dhol players. It's a Muslim community. It's a Muslim community that lives very closely with the Sikh community and serves them. And they take care of the Sheikh Farid shrine as well as playing the dhol and the other instruments and kind of living right next door to this Sitla Devi shrine. And just have a clip of, so you get a sense. It's just a rhythm that we know. I'm going to ask you guys what rhythm it is after it's done. What rhythm is that on dhol? Thank you. Tamal. And I'll just show you guys one more deity, maybe one of the more complicated ones even. Because some of those, Sakhi Sarwar is understood to be a historical personage. Haider Shaikh, founded the town of Malerkotla, historical. This is more of a mythical figure, and it's Gugga Zahir Pir. Gugga Pir is kind of Hindu and Muslim at the same time. His tale is that he was a Hindu Rajput, and he did something that made his mom not very proud of him. And the mother said, "Get out of here, go." And he was so ashamed, he asked the earth swallow me up. And the earth said, no, that's, you bury Muslims, you're Hindu. You cremate Hindus, I can't swallow you up. So he converted to Islam, and then the earth swallowed him up. And then where the earth swallowed him, they built the shrine. This is a shrine, it's in very northern part of Rajasthan, part that was actually at some point in the political configuration of things, part of Punjab state, but is no longer. But definitely in the Punjab orbit. It's in desert area of northern Rajasthan, and they take pieces of dirt from this shrine because the Gugga Pir is associated with dirt in the earth and the snakes in the earth, and the monsoon season when the snakes supposedly come out, and when the snakes supposedly come out, then they bite you, and then you need a cure from snake bite. So who do you go to? You go to Gugga Pir. But there are people from the Valmiki community, which are again people that are re-empowering themselves. Where historically they were treated as untouchables, and now they re-empower themselves by having a new name, Valmiki. They're interested in the devotion to Gugga Pir year round. This is one group of individuals that are some closely knit families, the caretaker of this one shrine. The shrines are all over Punjab. As I started to say, that you take some of the dirt from the original shrine and you sort of place that, and you can start a new shrine there. So in more recent years, this community has started to play dhol with this. They don't have like the generations of training. They wouldn't know those really specific rhythms. They mostly play tamal for everything, but they do play it a lot, and they do play it very sincerely. And the thing I'm going to end with now, because I'm just about to wrap up, is just a little clip of a pilgrimage to the main shrine of Gugga Pir, which is in Rajasthan. It's a trip with this set of devotees from this particular shrine. They're also almost like copying the Sakhi Sarwar thing, the pole that I told you about with the cloth attached to it. You'll see that in the video. They've gone around in the months preceding this pilgrimage. They've gone around, they've knocked on doors and asked women, "Hey, do you want us? We're going to go to make a pilgrimage. Give us your veil, and we'll tie it on there, and we'll kind of give blessings to that thing when we go, and then we'll come back, like we do the pilgrimage for you, And so they have this pole, but the pole actually represents Gugga Pir, and someone has to carry it in the specially made leather holster, and the person who carries it is called the Kordi, the horse, like that horse up there. So it's like you're riding on the horse. You'll see one scene in the video where the toll player is actually playing the bhangrā rhythm. He's not playing tamal, he's playing the bhangrā rhythm, because it's kind of like a galloping rhythm, and the guy's trying to make it like he's the horse galloping with the thing. But otherwise you're here at tamal, he's playing everywhere, just like, spreading all over the whole soundscape. And you'll hear these other drummers, which they also have, play an instrument called daru. Not daru, like Alkan daru, but daru, which is an hourglass-shaped drum that seems to represent this damru that's associated with the Lord Shiv, but it's a bigger version, and it's hit with the stick. And I think they're the only community of people who actually play this. So there are bards that sing the praises of this Pir and tell his whole story that I started to tell you guys. So those people are around too. Walking across the desert to the shrine. We hear tamal being beaten. He's going to drink that later. He's blessed the alcohol, now he'll drink it later. The blessed whiskey. And that video ends with, that's me getting slapped on the back by the priest there. And what rhythm did you, just a little bit of it, did you hear rhythm happening? Yeah, what rhythm is it? Tamal, that was the rhythm in the background. So I'm feeling that, so I'm hearing, when I hear tamal, I could be bringing back a memory of, at being in that situation there with the priest slapping me on the back, and that's the sound around it. So I want to end here and just urge you all to, as I said, think beyond Bhangra when you're thinking about Punjabi expressive culture, to talk to your friends or your relatives that may have connections with this culture, and just really ask them about all the little things. There are so many things. People keep treading over the same path, but there's like so many things that I can't access because I'm not a native and I would like to, and I don't know all the answers about what was just happening with that particular. I mean, I know some of them, but I'm anticipating you might ask, what was just happening there? I don't know all these things, but I mean, a lot of people are in such a better position to learn about these things, but they keep going back to this idea of the dhol is just this nationalistic symbol, or like a symbol of like manliness or toughness or coolness or something and that. So I urge you to consider the older, those are valid, interpretations of it too, but consider the older meanings of it with the dhol players who were very humble and they'd stand off the side, and this is just what we have to play to make this happen. You don't need to see me on stage. I play over here and sort of do my duty, and this is what I do is something serious, and it's not kind of all jokes all the time. And that's maybe a strange way to end, but that's the way I'm going to end it. So thank you all very much for your attention.
So we'll now have time for question and answer. Please raise your hand, and Isabel or I will come to you with the microphone.
So when they hand the cloths to the players of the drum, they're handing it to the pilgrims to take it to the shrine. I'm a little bit confused about that because you mentioned it a couple of times that it was a little.
I didn't hear the very beginning of your question. Could you say it again?
Why do people give cloths to the dhol players?
Okay, I understand now, yes. They give the cloth to, did you see the pole in that one scene that was being carried? So these are the religious people, the devotees of the religion, and they're going through the neighborhood, and they're going to people's houses, and they're saying, hello, would you like us to bring some blessings for you back from the shrine that we go to? And the way you do that is like, if a woman answers the door, she says, yes, I've been wanting to have my son get married for many years, and we're now finding a wife, so we were going to ask the saint for this. But I can't go myself to the shrine, but you're going. So they give the cloth and they tie on that. And then the pilgrims go on their trip to the shrine, and then they get the blessings delivered onto this stick. And then they bring them back when they come home. And then they can give the cloth back or whatever. Yeah. And then, but at the same time, if the woman is giving that, she's saying, oh, and also for this service, here's some money. So this is earning a living through donations, which is considered to be a more respectable way to say you earn your living, is say, well, I get a donation, rather than saying somebody pays me, because there's something very serious about, well, if you do a performance or service and someone pays you, that traditionally minded, conservative minded people think if you're paid, it's kind of degrading what you're doing. It's okay.
Thanks so much for your talk. I was wondering, first, was the first rhythm that you played on the dhol, was that a 6-beat cycle?
That's an interesting question. Can everybody engage that question, or I'm not sure, could you elaborate so others can understand both your question and my response?
Well, I was just wondering, I know that in Hindustani music, there are a lot of interesting rhythm cycles. Some are 8 beats, some are 12, 16, and then some are 6.
Yeah.
And I was wondering whether that's the same in more devotional music.
Sure.
With the dhol.
Yeah, I understand your question. That was the first one I played, was the wrestling rhythm. And I'm not being coy, but I'm not going to be able to answer whether it has 6 beats. Nobody ever told me, they don't speak of it that way, and someone just played it, and then I learned how to play it. And I actually prefer not to count it up that way, but I'll play it again for you again, and you can see what you think. So there's a little something in there. And it's not maybe the first time you heard me play it around, you said, well, he doesn't play very well. He doesn't seem very coordinated. But then maybe when you heard me play it over and over and over again, that can't be a mistake. That's perfectly the same. There's a little something in there. I just call it swing in my terminology, thinking about jazz. When you don't mean to think if it ain't got that swing, and if you don't know how to swing, I can't teach it to you. It's supposed to be just a way you know how to play. So there's something in there that stretches the time, that makes it difficult to hear this and then try to maybe write it down in a Western notation. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
So are most of the dhol playing communities Sikh, or it didn't seem like many of them were Sikh?
No, yeah, absolutely. It's the opposite. It's very, very few Sikhs play dhol, and I only found, in the traditional system, yeah? We know anybody is legally allowed to do whatever they want. So in the United States, the young folks that play, they might mostly be Sikh, and they might be from the Jat community, the mainstream agricultural community, Punjab. But in the India-Pakistan situation, the only ones I actually showed, oh, this is off, that's okay. Oh, okay. Were, this fellow, who, I hate to label people, but they really do label themselves. All these communities actually, they don't necessarily get along very well with each other, and I find maybe the higher economic class want to say, well, we don't believe in caste, and we don't want to think about that, and we don't discriminate against you, and it's a very fine idea, but the people that are in that situation do still think that way amongst each other, and really, sometimes they have negative things to say about the other group. Sometimes they're ambivalent. but rarely do they have a good thing to say about the other groups. So they're quite divided, and they do label themselves. And this fellow, just told me flat out, I'm Muzbi, which is the term for Sikh converts from the so-called sweeper caste. So there's just them and one other community that I have in all my years studying this that I found. This is no longer moving, but here we go. Is okay. This one is from something called Rasik community, and the government of India has them in something called the backward caste. I don't know if you've heard of this. It sounds really strange to say, but that's the official designation. They're one of the so-called backward castes. And the area they live is really remote, and none of the other communities of drummers are there, and that's why they did it, because they just needed somebody, and nobody, but otherwise they wouldn't have taken to it. Thank you.
So I know this is it seems as if it's very community specific. Also very, you have certain dhol rhythms for certain saints, or like you said, wrestling, so certain events. Apart from dhamal, is there any other common dhol things that you found surprisingly in very different communities, but they had a very similar dhol rhythm to say something I don't know what else they would have it for. Would they have it for say a marriage at home? Is there a way to announce something like that? Or and the other question is that it seems as if you need to finish the rhythm perfectly of a thing. Can you switch to another one, or the minute you do that it becomes not the original sense of it?
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm
That's
saying?
a good question.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if you're accompanying some specific function, I'm not sure there would be a reason to switch to something else, because you're at the goddess temple, so that's the one. That's where you are. When they switch rhythm the most is in the modern stage bhangrā presentation show, and that's out of design, and that's something they developed over 60s, 70s, 80s. They're like, we have 10 minutes to give a bhangrā show, and we want to put as many different things in as possible. And they just started packing it with all these different things, and you just do one action for a second, and then you change, and every time you change, you do something like, that's like your change. That's called dorda meaning break. So if they were doing the, and you've heard this before, you probably all heard this, but maybe you didn't necessarily register formally what it was if they were playing the. So I switched from this one, Kerva, and then I played this break. That's shifting the gears, now into a different gear on your car, and then I can. Yeah, but even with all the dances, you usually play this dorda 3 times to end the sort of dance that's there. To answer another part of your question. Bhangrā dance, for example, as I said in the beginning, the traditional one was never a really huge dance. It was just one time of year only that you do it, and a really small geographic areas. The biggest dance of Punjab is called chummar. And this rhythm is completely different, and it sounds like this. Completely different character than Bhangrā, and when it's very light, and it's just you're just all ages can do it, the old folks can do it, and people that are disabled can all do it, and it's not like that sort of thing. So that would be a different example, and yes, there are other rhythms for different specific things. The wrestling has a whole bunch of different specific rhythms. Kabaddi rhythm, so they have something called Gungi kabaddi, silent kabaddi. So if normal kabaddi is you say kabaddi, 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 kabaddi while you're playing. Gungi kabaddi is a silent one, so you don't say that, and dhol plays. So you couldn't be playing dhol, the normal kabaddi, in which someone has to hear this sport kabaddi, where you have to repeat something while you're in the enemy territory. You'd have to hear, to verify the person is not cheating, you have to hear them say that. If dhol was playing, you wouldn't hear that, so it has to be the silent version of it. So the wedding procession, a barat, wedding procession, in the old days had a specific rhythm. It wasn't just dink a dink a dink a dink a dink a dink. There's a specific one, but hardly anybody knows it anymore.
Yeah, just thanks again for your talk. I really enjoyed it.
My pleasure.
So when I listen to you play each of these kind of rhythms, I notice that it takes me a while to sink into the structure of it.
Yeah.
I almost have to hear it once and then know what to expect the second time around.
Yep.
How does that play into seemingly the importance of culture and society with this kind of music? Because I'm getting a sense that these societies are fragmented, and just what you played had a very different sound to kind of traditional Punjabi sound did.
Yeah.
And so how does that kind of need for context or need for having known about it play into that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if this would be an answer, but I mean, I do think you have to live it, and you have to be around there. And I there's sometimes in my teaching, I'm an ethnomusicologist, as you know, and one of the works in the canon of ethnomusicology is a work by at UCLA, now retired as of last year, Professor Tim Rice, who learned to play the bagpipes in Bulgaria, and he had this whole mystery where he saw, how do you do all like the little sounds they're making on the bagpipe there? And he noticed little children just learning, by fooling around, and they would just kind of noodle around, and it didn't sound like the tune, the melody on bagpipe he was trying to play. But then his adult teacher, from whom he would ask, how do I learn the bagpipe? Well, the teacher didn't have a system either of like, well, first you do this and then you do that. He said, like, you just like move your fingers around and you sort of find it. And I had a very similar experience, because similarly the teachers on dhol don't have a method like that's formal. And there's in no event will they say, can you say, well, what do you play on this side and then what do you play on this? They just show me this one, they show me. It's just always together. It's like, this is the word. It's like, say it, plant. Well, how do you say plant? Someone's like, well, it's pa and la. They're just like, plant, just say it, plant. And it's just, the hands either come together, or one comes and then the other one comes, or maybe it comes half a time, and you can see the children doing that. Just, if well, this is a good illustration. I'm going to play at the mall the exact same message of the mall. So the exact same strokes. So I'm delivering that SOS message, not SOT, not SOR, but SOS. But I'm going to play it two different ways, and I hope you'll hear the difference. And Varun, this speaks to your earlier question too. Here's the first way. Listen to the second way. Anyone hear any difference? I'll do the first one again, just one more time, yeah? First one. Second way. Okay, it's a little bit subtle, but something that I'm doing with the time, where I'm playing all the same strokes in the exact same order, and if this one has to come before this one, it comes there, and if this has to be a little way before this one, it comes. They're all in relation to each other, but there's a little bit of a lag in certain places between those things. So I conclude from that it's really that whole pattern as a unit that comes into the, cognitively. I mean, I'm not a cognitive linguist or anything like that, but that you sort of just chunk that thing in your brain and you do that. And I couldn't figure out how to play that way, the second way I just played. I prefer the second way. I think it has a style to it. It's a style that luckily enough, I visited, I worked with my teacher in one city, Chandigarh. My teacher was a migrant from from the Western Punjab. Oh, and by the way, this might be interesting to you guys. My teacher's wife came from Pakistan in 1960. Anybody know South Asian history? Puzzled by that. My teacher's wife, a Hindu, came from Pakistan in 1960 to India. Why did she come in 1960 and not 1947? They got stuck there. 1947 happened, the populations are moving, but they're the Bazigar community that they're peripatetic, they're nomads. They roam around, they're outside of the society. So the partition happens and the populations are exchanging and they're just going around like, okay, this is where we go. And then, at some point they realize now the border's closed and we're in Pakistan. And then, that many years later, 13 years later, they had to just escape and do a daring border crossing with all of their whole tribe across the desert. Anyways, where was I? I played this rhythm that, see, I didn't lose my train of thought. That I learned from my teacher in one city, and I go for a different community of Dolis in another city, and there's, I'm playing for one group of dudes, and there's some other dude, and he's off around the corner, but he doesn't see me. And then he comes in and he goes, oh, I thought somebody from Chandigarh was here, because I heard the way that you played. It's that little stylistic difference that's in there, was something that I was only able to learn, not by ever trying to write it down, have 6 beats or anything. I just kept letting my hands flow and then just feeling it. In some way I was able to just feel it, maybe the way when you learn a different language and you, at first, you're very conscious about pronouncing the sounds of the language, and then eventually you kind of perfect them and you forget however it was to not be able to pronounce them that way. Accent, I think of it as akin to an accent. Yeah.
Sorry, one more question.
No problem.
I was wondering, you did this thing when you were explaining the pattern that you were going to play where you sounded out the syllables.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if the syllables that you were saying correspond to different parts of the drum, or a different sound.
Yeah. So I did that just once, I think. And I was talking about the classic Bhangra rhythm, and it's a din tanak din not tanak din tanak din not tanak din. That's not a really firm tradition on dhol, unlike in classical where it is a very firm pedagogical, technique, and also performance, as you know, where you'd say the bol, B-O-L, bol, and then you in a sense perform what you're going to play with your hands, with your mouth. It's not a rigorous thing. There's a very casual way, just exactly the way that I did to render the playing, the rhythm of this into some spoken word, just to communicate which one I'm talking about. But it's just not formal at all, and people don't learn from that at all. And the teachers don't say, now recite this and then do it. No, they play it. And you say, slow down, and what? And they do it.
Is there any vocals? There was some singing, but is it really not sing, or
they don't sing.
People do sing, and then is there a tradition that's developing where they sing? Because I've seen people play dhol and sing at the same time.
Usually not, because voice isn't considered matched to dhol. Dhol doesn't usually play with any other instrument unless it's percussion, like the chimta, jingle stick type thing, like a very other loud percussion. It's not matched in popular music nowadays. When you have a recording studio and you again with the logic of oh, dhol, that's Punjabi identity and this is Punjabi song, so we should put it in there. And then you mix that with songs and other instruments, and it all fits together, equalize the volume in the recording studio. But in the world of these folks, you can't sing. You did see that one example of that one kind of fakir, ascetic guy who seemed to be singing a song of praise for that. So that's one of the few examples I've seen of that. One other example I can give you is in just with dances, though. There is some singing. So if it's that Chumar dance, the very light one I did, tin, tanaka din, tin, tanaka din, tin, tanaka din, tin, tanaka. There could be songs that go with that. The beat is so light, and they're the old Bhangra that nobody in this room has seen, I don't think. But I'm making an assumption there. But it's quite rare the way they did it, they would sing first and then play. So it's out of time. You say your verse like, O par chana to disda hai bela, belion par vasenda hai tola, and then draw. O dabke daga maro shekha, e dunya chat da mela. And then they start din tanak din din tanak din din, and then everyone just dances on the beat. But then they stop ding dong ding dong 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 ding dong ding dong 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 ding dong 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 dong. Stop. Say some more verses. So it's back and forth.
All right, that's all the time we have
All
for
right.
tonight. So please join me one more time thanking our speaker.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Thank you so much.